When I look back on my own college graduation 50-odd years ago, I remember being worried about what came next. I thought that the future was a place, like Paris or the Arctic Circle. The supposition proved to be mistaken. The future turned out to be something that you make instead of find. It isn't waiting for your arrival, either with an arrest warrant or a ban. It doesn't care how you come dressed or demand to see a ticket of admission. It is no further away than the next sentence, the next best guess, the next sketch for the painting of a life's portrait that may or may not become a masterpiece. The future is an empty canvas or a blank sheet of paper. And if you have the courage of your own thought and your own observation, you can make of it what you will. The wisdoms in office prefer the comfort of their best-loved superstitions in the fog of welcome lies. But a civilization worthy of the name stands in need of as many questions as a new generation can think to ask. The political arguments going forward in the world at the moment, in Mexico and what was once the Soviet Union, as well as in Ottawa and downtown Damascus, are the same ones that enlivened the scaffolds of Renaissance Italy and the annals of Imperial Rome. The familiar, usually blood-stained quarrel between time past and time future, between the inertia of things as they are and the energy inherent in the hope of things as they might become. All of you in the graduating class belong, by definition, if not by choice, to the party of things as they might become. Your best hope is your idealism, and your best weapon is the freedom of your own mind. Within the profession of journalism, I have often heard it said that the truth shall make men free. But I also notice that relatively few people know what the phrase means. The truth isn't about assimilation of doctrine or an assembling of data, not even about yesterday's news of scandal in Hollywood or Washington. The truth is synonymous with the learning to trust to the thinking and seeing for oneself. Don't underestimate the guile of your enemies. They rely on two lines of false argument, both of them expensively advertised. First, that the future is extremely dangerous, very difficult, very complicated, very far beyond the grasp of mere youths who never have met a payroll or served with Nelson at Trafalgar. The media have a hand in the deception, and I speak from experience when I tell you that the fear of flying is what sells newspapers and instills subservience to the status quo. The seers who look into the abyss never lack for evil omens. They predict catastrophes appropriate to the concerns of the audiences they have been paid to alarm. During my years as the editor of Harper's Magazine, I remember receiving in a single week the galley proofs of 3 new books entitled, in order of their arrival, The End of Nature, The End of Science, and The End of History. The rumors are exaggerated. As often as not, they are the work of people enraged by the thought of a future likely to find them ridiculous or irrelevant. They remind me of the French noblewoman, a duchess in her 80s, who, on seeing the first ascent of Montgolfier's balloon from the Palace of the Tuileries in 1783, fell back among the cushions of her carriage and wept. "Oh yes," she said, "now it's certain. One day they'll learn how to keep people alive forever, but I shall already be dead." When I was your age, I thought the world knew exactly what it was doing, but as I grew older, I noticed, first to my surprise and then to my distress, that the more loudly people claimed to know all the answers, the less likely they knew even a few of the questions. The walls of the establishment are made of paper, the fortifications manned by Wizards of Oz, propped up behind the sandbags of intimidating ceremony. They ally themselves with human weakness, with vanity, ignorance, and greed. I don't know how the game works in Canada, but in the United States, we now spend upwards of $500 billion a year on alcohol, pornography, celebrity, and drugs. The Cold War against the American intellect constitutes a more profitable business than the old arrangement with the Russians. Few pleasures equal the joy of the mind when it's being put to imaginative use. And what you have learned at King's College is the beginning, not the end, of the education. The discussions in the American newspapers about the failures of its schools sometimes mention the existence of the educated citizen. But to the best of my knowledge, I never have met such a person, and so I assume that the phrase refers to a mythical figure not unlike the unicorn in a medieval bestiary. Even the idea of an educated citizen strikes me as far-fetched. I can conceive of a self-educating citizen, and I have had the good fortune to meet a number of people who can be so described, but none of them would be fool enough to proclaim themselves educated. Without exception, they possess the valor of their ignorance, conceiving of education neither as a blessed state of being, comparable to a berth on the Queen of England's yacht, nor as a material good sold in a store, even at Harvard's rate of $50,000 a year, but rather as a ceaseless process of discovering that the world is not oneself. If in 16 years they have spent 10,000 hours in a classroom, roughly equivalent to 15 months, they expect to spend another 50 years revising what they thought they had learned in school. Nobody ever put the proposition better than T.H. White in his novel The Once and Future King. He has the wizard Merlin talking to the young King Arthur, who is depressed, downhearted, possibly thinking about giving up, to borrow from Churchill. And Merlin says to the young king, the best thing for being sad is to learn something. That is the only thing that never fails. You may grow old and trembling in your anatomies. You may lie awake at night listening to the disorder of your veins. You may miss your only love. You may see the world about you devastated by evil lunatics, or know your honor trampled in the sewers of baser minds. There is only one thing for it then, to learn. Learn why the world wags and what wags it. That is the only thing which the mind can never be tortured by, never fear or distrust, and never dream of regretting. The second line of false argument employed by the party of things as they are is the one that says this is the best of all possible worlds and that nothing important remains to be done or said or discovered. We are here in office because we deserve to be here in office because of our infinite wisdom and grace. You have only to consult the listings in any newspaper, any week, any edition, to know that this is not true. The news is mostly the story of human folly, about futile wars and frightened governments, about the systematic poisoning of the atmosphere and the oceans. Quite clearly, almost everything remains to be done, or said, or discovered. And the world needs as much help as it can get. And if it doesn't get that help from people like yourselves, then on whom can it rely for the hope of a new answer, or even better, a new question? I wish you well, and my reasons are self-serving. You are the light on the horizon of the human imagination, and those of us further inland count on you to give voice to its powers of expression.